You know, in some ways I kind of feel like I'm a little bit late to the party when discussing ND filters on this platform. But recently one of my favorite YouTubers just announced a signature series ND filter set with Polar Pro. Everybody's talking about ND filters. Okay, I guess we can still talk about ND filters on this platform. Now before I begin, I think it's important to establish some ground rules as to what these things really do. In my opinion, they only do one thing. They allow the user to shoot with wide open apertures in order to achieve that coveted shallow depth of field regardless of how bright it is. Now if you primarily shoot photography, then you're probably not thinking that you need an ND filter, and in most cases you're right. Of course there are exceptions if you're trying to get a really long exposure during the day to show a waterfall or some type of a special effect, then yes, you do need one. But in most cases, you can set your aperture to 1.4, you can get that bokeh-licious background, and all you really need to do to compensate for the bright sunny day is crank up your shutter speed. In fact, I shot these photos today at f1.8 and my shutter speed was 1/3000th of a second. That's pretty awesome, but if you're shooting video, that's the last thing you want to do. If you're shooting video, then you want to make sure that the motion blur on your videos is the right kind of motion blur. If your shutter speed's too fast, it looks horrible. I mean, really bad. Now, I don't want to assume that this is common knowledge, so I'm just going to run through it really fast. If you're shooting film, then you want your shutter speed to be no more than 2 times your frame rate. So if you're filming at 24 frames per second, then you want your shutter speed to be double that, which is 1/50th. If you're shooting at 30 frames per second, you want your shutter speed to be at 1/60th. If you want that buttery slow-mo and you want 60 frames a second, fantastic. In that case, you're going to be set to about 1/120th of a second for your shutter speed. Doubling the frame rate is commonly referred to as the 180-degree rule, which pretty much all of us are trying to employ at all times. Unfortunately, even if you are shooting in those faster frame rates and doubling your shutter speed, you're still not going to be using a fast enough shutter speed to allow you to shoot at, say, 1.4 or even 1.8 to get that really shallow depth of field that we all try so hard to get. That's when an ND filter will come in and absolutely save the day. These are like designer sunglasses for your lens. There's a lot of ND filters to choose from out there, but if you're a run and gun videographer like me, I strongly recommend that you choose a variable. You're not always going to need maximum strength to achieve your shot, and sometimes an ND with only, say, 4 stops isn't going to be enough. I've tried a lot of different ND filters, and I have to say that my favorite brand isn't the one that Peter McKinnon uses. My favorite ND filter is made by a company called Aurora Aperture. Now, this is not a sponsored video. Trust me, they are not sponsoring me to say this, but I will leave a link in the description. The build quality is very good, and they're available in pretty much every popular thread size, so they'll fit on pretty much any lens. They're modestly priced, unlike some of those signature brands, and I also think it's pretty cool that they were developed right here in sunny California. Okay, now for the fun stuff. Let's cut to some backyard B-roll where I show you how you can shoot with a really shallow depth of field during the brightest time of the day by using an ND filter.
My life wasn't perfect, I know that now. When it came crashing down, all I know is I need you around. When it comes crashing down, all I need is not to feel so much alone. So step inside my zone, baby, you can give me everything I want. Everything I want. You are all I need now.
Pretty awesome, right? Try getting that on your iPhone. I don't think so. And that's the point, right? You want your videos to look more professional than what someone could get on their iPhone. And that's really what these help you to do. They allow you to shoot with a shallow depth of field, getting some really, really unique and pro cinematic looking shots by using the neutral density filter. Other than the fact that the footage looks a lot more professional and a lot more cinematic, I still want to give you 4 reasons why I like to shoot with a shallow depth of field whenever possible. Number 1, it makes for much better storytelling. By shooting shallow, you can direct the viewer's attention to different focal points within the same composition. Pulling focus this way tells a better story of delicious cocktails can be enjoyed poolside, rather than simply showing them this. Don't forget your sunscreen and your beach towels is way better storytelling than just showing them this scene. Number 2, total isolation of the subject. Maybe you're wanting to highlight a beautiful flower and you don't really want your audience to know that there's dog poop right below your flower. Number 3, perceived sharper images. Believe it or not, this rock is technically sharper from edge to edge at f/16 using this lens, but by isolating the subject with a shallow depth of field, it actually appears to be a little bit sharper because it's standing off from the background. That might not have been the greatest example because I shot that with such a shallow depth of field that the edges of the rock were kind of And finally, number 4, less distracting talking head moments while vlogging. When I'm talking to the camera in a vlog, I want the background to be a little bit blurry because I don't want to be competing with anyone or anything that might be behind me. I want to be the star of this show. So what are some reasons why you guys use ND filters, or do you even use ND filters at all? Brad, if you're watching this, you need to start using your ND filter. I'm really excited to be contributing to this platform, but I'm even more excited to learn from you guys who are probably a lot better at doing these things than me. So maybe you can help me out by leaving some comments or some suggestions down below. Now before I go, I want to address some comments that I got in my last video. The first one comes from Jason Abadi. Rad video, my friend. Buttery B-roll, and that color grade is mean in a good way. Thank you, Jason. I try to be as mean as possible in all my color grades. The next one comes from somebody named Try Trippin'. You're pretty cool for an old guy. Like and subbed. The next one is from OC Motivator, who says, wow, just wow. I've got a million questions, but the first one is, how did you get the underwater shots? Okay, full disclosure here. In that video, I did say that I only had one camera and 2 lenses, and then I proceeded to show a bunch of underwater shots when I was fishing. I forgot that I always have my GoPro with me in my tackle box. That was a good catch. Thank you for keeping me on my toes. This last one is from Justin Harder, who writes, super cool. Well, thank you, Justin. I appreciate it. And I appreciate all you guys who take the time to watch my videos. If you do want to see more, then please subscribe for future content, and I will catch you on the next one.
My life wasn't perfect, yeah, I know that now. When it came crashing down, all I know is that I need you around. When it comes crashing down, all I need is not to feel so much alone. So step inside my zone, baby, you can give me everything I want.